In 2001, the original Red Faction introduced gamers to a futuristic version of life on Mars. 8 years have passed since then, and technology has improved dramatically. Now, Volition is revisiting the franchise, abandoning the first-person perspective and standard gameplay for a third-person shooter set in a large open world. Many fans of the series saw it as a betrayal, but with promises of an unprecedented level of destruction, it looked like Red Faction Guerrilla had the potential to prove them wrong and give gamers a good excuse to set down on the Red Planet. Players control Alec Mason, a miner who makes his way to Mars to earn an honest living. After meeting up with his brother Dan, Alec learns of the Red Faction, a resistance group to the planet's totalitarian regime, the Earth Defense Force. After his arrival, his brother implores him to join the resistance, but Alec is reluctant. The choice is soon made for him, however, as Dan is killed by the EDF before they turn their attention towards Alec. The story isn't too involved, and there's little in terms of character development or narrative. From time to time it might dabble in a bit of social commentary, but it never goes too deep, even when it should. This isn't too important though, because Red Faction Guerrilla is just simply fun to play, and even without a huge amount of narrative, the goal of Red Faction Guerrilla is clear: to kick the EDF off of Mars. To do so, Mason needs to destabilize their control over 6 sectors, pushing them out one by completing different missions and objectives. Overthrowing EDF bases, destroying places of importance, ambushing convoys, and committing other acts of guerrilla warfare loosen the Earth Defense Force's grip of Mars. After enough of these guerrilla actions are taken, an actual story mission is unlocked, which is a more scripted and polished encounter. The lengthy campaign starts to drag in the second half, especially when the missions become more difficult and the checkpoints become less frequent, but should supply gamers with enough momentum to continue playing, even if most of the time is spent running around and blowing things up. Guerrilla's focus on destruction goes beyond simply saying that the game has destructible environments. In reality, it's much more accurate to say that Red Faction Guerrilla features near true-to-life destruction. This isn't a novelty, and it's incorporated into every aspect of the game, creating limitless, unique encounters. Different missions can be taken on in different ways depending on the way the player wants to play. Throwing a few explosives onto a vehicle turns it into a mobile bomb, which can be used to level buildings after being slammed through a wall. On the other hand, it's possible to just collapse a building onto opponents or blow a bridge out from underneath them. These are all things that work in conjunction with the game's otherwise well-developed shooting engine, which functions as well as most other games in the genre. It also works in conjunction with the game's swinging engine, and few things in the world are as entertaining as leveling a building with a powerful sledgehammer. Every aspect of Red Faction Guerrilla works together, blending it into a large, well-developed experience. Destroying buildings produces scrap, which can be spent to unlock better items, which can be used to attempt more difficult missions. Completing these missions raises morale, which will cause citizens to join Mason on missions, attempting to assist him in overthrowing the EDF. AI can falter in these situations, making these citizen soldiers more trouble than they're worth, but it's still an interesting mechanic. Even so, not enough can be said about how fun Guerrilla is to play. Smashing a mech through a 2-story building and watching enemies run for cover is breathtaking, and provides some of the most enjoyable moments of the generation. It's remarkable how well Red Faction Guerrilla holds together. Even in the most hectic of battles, with buildings crumbling on all sides, dozens of characters engaged in combat, and massive explosions sending debris flying through the air, there's rarely a graphical hitch or frame rate drop. It's an exemplary title, displaying the power of the current generation in ways no other game has. While it doesn't have the graphics of Killzone 2, it's simply amazing how well the destruction works, and how good it looks in the midst of the chaos. Smoke will billow out of crumbling buildings which creak and shudder as the supports buckle under stress. When they finally do collapse, it's always somewhat shocking how good it looks. Even after exiting and reloading, most objects stay destroyed, adding to the persistent feel of the world. Beyond the stunning destruction, Volition has done an admirable job at creating an open-world game on an alien planet. It's far from a utopia, and the dark, desolate look of the planet definitely fits the somewhat hopeless tone set by the story. The only weak point in the presentation is likely the supporting character models, which don't seem to be nearly as polished as the other aspects of the game. Either way, Red Faction Guerrilla is above and beyond most other games in the genre, with a stunning presentation that can be held up against any of its contemporaries. Red Faction Guerrilla comes out of the gate swinging with an extremely deep multiplayer package. It has all of the features gamers have come to expect this generation, such as a leveling system and multiple unique game modes, but adds a bit more to the formula. Beyond the obvious enhancements that come at the hands, or rather the hammers, of the game's destruction engine, backpacks also add a bit of uniqueness to the shooter. Players can pick up any of 10 backpacks, each sporting unique abilities. Using the jetpack, concussion blast, speed boost, or rhino charge to take down opponents adds even more chaos to the already hectic shooter. It's incredibly fun, and has the potential to build a somewhat large online community. This would be an even easier task if the game's other multiplayer mode, Wrecking Crew, was also online. Wrecking Crew tasks players with destroying buildings in a small enclosed area, attempting to rack up points to beat out their competition. It's turn-based, which means passing around the controller, and plays out like a more adult version of EA's Boom Blocks. It's incredibly addictive, but also incredibly restricted as an offline-only mode. Hopefully future DLC can add a functionality to the Wrecking Crew, because the only thing more fun than blowing things up is doing so online. Its story might be a little lacking, but that shouldn't be enough to deter anyone from picking up Red Faction Guerrilla. Released in a strange spot in between Infamous and Prototype, it's going to be easy to forget about the game. Don't. It's likely as good as either title, and just as worthy of a purchase. Red Faction Guerrilla is an experience that shouldn't be missed. Thanks for watching, and be sure to check out the full text review on Gamervision.com.